Welcome to another episode of the Never Lose a Deal podcast. So, today's show is going to be about creative financing. I'm going to share with you a case study. So, as always, this show is for real estate investors who want to find creative ways to expand their real estate portfolio. And that is what I am doing today. I want to share with you a real live case study. And so the best way to be able to display it is to show you some of the things that I am working on. So, as always, my goal is to always bring context to a lot of the information that I share here on this podcast. Because I truly believe that in this day and time on the internet, there is no shortage of information. You got AI, you got podcasts, you got my YouTube channel, you got my podcast, you have a gazillion people that are sharing information. But I find that what is lacking is implementation. And for the Never Lose a Deal listeners, that is always my goal to give you a behind the scenes look back of what it looks like when you pair information with real life. You get implementation because anyone can give you information. How do I know that? Because on a regular basis, I'm either talking to an investor offline, or either I talk to investors who reach out to me here online who are bloated with information. So investors do not need more information. They're bloated with information. What I find that's missing is implementation. And so today I'm going to share with you the case study that I'm currently working on. And this case study is not to give you any information on creative financing because I'm a big advocate of creative financing. There is not one way to skin a cat. And so you'll have people that will tell you, well, this is creative financing. And let me tell you, they are not wrong because if you are an active real estate professional, investor, whatever title you want to give yourself, business owner, you know that creative financing gets to look like what you want it to look like based on your needs, based on your goals, based on what it is that you want to do. So a lot of the creative financing um, strategies, techniques, and case studies that I share really is for the investor who is looking to expand their portfolio. And in these times when you have people who want to have others to believe that there's a shortage of inventory, there's a shortage of financing, whatever the case may be, you're always going to have two sets of people. You're going to have those individuals who want to inject fear into the marketplace. Oh, there's a shortage of this, just sit on the sidelines, just wait till everything settles out. And when the interest rates get lower and when, economic times look similar to what it looks like in 2021, then you can go back into the real estate market. Well, the listeners are here on the Never Lose a Deal podcast. They do not subscribe to that rhetoric. They are investors who understand that now a wealth transfer is taking place. And now more than ever, they're being very aggressive as well as strategic with how they build out their portfolio. And I'm here to be that voice to be able to share with you some things that I'm currently working with clients on. So, as I've said in other episodes, not only do I help real estate investors with my funding framework and methodology to be able to find the financing method that works best for them to build out their portfolio, I also help investors to be able to source deals because What good is it to have a great financing and funding methodology that you can employ? You're not one who is scared to, leverage capital, but you don't have the inventory. And so I said, let me be that other piece to real estate investors who want to be able to pair that financing strategy that I'm sharing with them with a way that they can now be able to execute and acquire more real estate. And that is what I want to share with you today. So, I'm going to give you a very out of the box strategy because this is what the investors that working with, what we are doing to be able to get access to inventory. So, if you give me a second, I'm going to share with you my screen. And so if you are seeing my screen, my screen right now, this is a creative financing case study here in New Jersey, Turnersville, New Jersey. For those who are not familiar with New Jersey, it's the southern part of New Jersey, which is considered Gloucester County. And so this is, about an hour and 45 minutes away from where I am at in New Jersey. But once again, if there are deals out there in the marketplace, I am going to be able to execute on them because once again, I work with investors all over. So, with that being said, now what makes this deal creative is that this particular home, I have relationships with asset managers where in previous episodes I've talked to you about purchasing real estate notes. So, what makes this case study creative is how we're going to acquire the property. So, it is not on the MLS. This is not a banked owned property, it's not an REO. It is a real estate note. But what gives this real estate note a unique spin is that it is a reverse mortgage note. So, just to give you some context of what I'm talking about, reverse mortgage notes, most people are familiar with reverse mortgages that are given to elderly people who want to be able to use the equity that is in their home. So the reverse mortgages have been marketed to seniors who they said is cash poor, equity rich. So there are some seniors who have taken part in being able to leverage that equity and they've gotten a reverse mortgage. Well, if you're familiar with reverse mortgages, you know that as the senior takes out the equity, they do not pay on the mortgage, the reverse mortgage. And so what happens is in this particular case, the senior who did own the home has passed away. And so now these reverse mortgages are on the books of an asset manager. They're looking to sell them. So I got a an email letting me know that this was available. And for those who are familiar with mortgage notes, most people who do purchase mortgage notes will either buy performing or non-performing notes because they want to be able to get the cash flow that is generated with the with the mortgage note. Well, with reverse mortgages, there is nothing to collect because once again, the person who took out the mortgage has died. And it's very rare that you get the heirs of the person who is deceased to take over because now the interest and penalties have accumulated, and so what happens is that they don't take it over. So when an investor like myself is interested in buying the reverse mortgage from the asset manager, the understanding is that you're not buying cash flow, you are buying the asset. So, how does that play into creative financing? Well, this is a strategy that I am working with investors on to be able to get inventory. Because if they're willing to be creative, because there are some other steps that do take place. because with reverse mortgages, you are buying the note. There still is a process that has to be put in place from a legal standpoint, and it's based on every state that has to be done in order for you to get full acquisition of the property, which I'm not going to share with you today because we would be here longer than a podcast episode. But I just want to be able to give you context with how we're getting access to your inventory to be able to invest and build out portfolios for my clients. And so, in this particular market, when the normal ways of acquiring real estate is not available to the marketplace or the investors who are actively investing, those who are serious about building out their portfolio are looking for other ways. And that is why I do this podcast. That is why I have this podcast on YouTube, because this is what I know: active real estate investors who understand that their main goal is to build wealth are not looking to be what's the saying go, a one, a one hit wonder, meaning that they only have one way to skin a cat. Now, maybe during flourishing times they had one way to be able to acquire properties, but now, with things not being in the state of what most people are used to in the real estate marketplace, this is where creative financing becomes king. And so there are investors out there that are like, yeah, I want to continue building my wealth. I want to continue acquiring real estate. And I am looking for out of the box strategies to be able to do that. Well, hey, that is why individuals listen to my podcast, because this is not an information based podcast. I told you there's no shortage of people regurgitating information. Like I said, you have Chat GPT, you have AI, and so and don't forget the old fashioned books. So information is plentiful. It's plentiful. But what is missing is implementation. And that is what separates what I do, how I help clients, because I tell those who do reach out to me, if you're looking for information, I'm not your person. Once again, because I find that whether offline or online, there are a lot of people who have coaches, mentors, and this is not to point any shade. They have these individuals that have given them a lot of information, and they don't give them the roadmap on how to implement it. So now, once again, they're bloated with information, but now don't know how to execute it. And that is why I do these case studies. That is why I continue sharing value on the podcast, because anything that I share with you, ladies and gentlemen, it is based on things that I have did myself or helped clients do. This is not information. This is not an information session. This is an implementation. Let's go to implementation to results. Everything is results based. But going back to this case study, so now that I've given you the context of how we're moving forward to be able to acquire these properties, these are some of the numbers. So at a purchase price of 260, we have ARVs of 450. Now, I didn't put the pictures of what the inside looks like because I do have interior pictures, but it doesn't need updating, of course. In this particular market, single family homes, this is a 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath. You want it to be, in the best shape. So this is not, we're not doing lipstick on a pig. It's not a full gut, but it definitely would be something that would be high end fixtures would be put in, but it doesn't need a full gut. So that's why the repairs are between 50 to 70,000. And so that still leaves a bit of room for, like I said, knowing that we're acquiring the note at about 200, 260 is what the bank wants, but we'll put a bid in something lower. And then still knowing that there's still legal work that has to be done in order to get full acquisition of the property, and still making sure that our numbers are where they need to be, that the investor will take full acquisition of the property. Once they get full acquisition, they will go into doing the repairs, to put it back on the market. And so when I work with investors, it's always important to know the end game. Now, of course, the end game is to be able to resell it. The Jersey market is still holding steady. You know, homes are still selling, salaries are still salarying in it, as I should say. That's not a word. But that being the case, Jersey's still a solid market to invest in, as well as for buyers. So buyers are still buying, investors still investing, um, and those who are actively pursuing things. I'm going to stop sharing now. Um, those who are actively doing things are looking to continue accumulating what it is that they're doing. So, this is just a very short episode for the Never Lose a Deal podcast, but I wanted to give you real life insights of what a creative financing case study would look like. But remember, creative financing gets to look like whatever you want it to look like. Once again, in the legal scope. I can't stress that, in the legal scope. But it's not just one way to skin a cat. It's not just one way. So it gets to look any way that you want. But when I think of creative financing, it's going to be out of the box. And when I say out of the box, it's not we're going to purchase real estate off of the MLS, or we're going to you know, be able to do absentee owners. It's going to be something that is not widely done by many investors, and so this is just one way. So, as always, my goal is to share with you creative financing techniques and strategies that can help you build out your real estate portfolio for investors who want to build wealth. As I mentioned, this is not information, this is implementation that leads to results, because there's plenty of information in the marketplace. There's no shortage of information, but what there is a shortage of is implementation to results. And if implementation to results is something that you desire, something that you would like for your real estate portfolio, let's have a conversation. As always, the show is being sponsored by Leverage Portfolio Capital. So if you want to have a conversation on how I can assist you with building out your portfolio using some of the strategies that I share here on this podcast and on this YouTube channel, I instruct you to go to www.leverageportfoliocapital.com. Let me know something about your scenario of what it is that you're working on, and let's have a conversation. Until the next time, I will see you in the next episode of the Never Lose a Deal podcast. To learn more about me, the links will be below this video or podcast episode. And to learn more about the podcast, just go to www.neverloseadealpodcast.com. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.